It has been such an extremely long time, but I've made it, and I promise you, you will not have to wait this long ever again. Maybe. Hello, if you didn't know who I am and this is the first time you're seeing me, my name is Sip7, and this is the Unhinged recap of Genshin Impact. You were watching part 3, so if you want to go back and watch part 1 or part 2, now's the time. Pause this video and feel free to go down in the description to grab a link to both of those. So let's get caught up. First, I would just like to say thank you to everyone who is still watching this series. The channel has been through a lot in the past 8 to 10 months, including a whole moment of me getting a cease and desist from Hoyoverse, but that is a story for another time and possibly another lore wall. We also recently hit 20k, and I'm happy to say we did indeed get a play button from YouTube. And yes, it is made of cardboard, 100% YouTube cardboard actually, and this is 100% real. So before we get into this long, and I mean long video, I'd like you to help me with something. Y'all, how the hell am I going to do a part 4 for this video? The wall is literally almost already filled. And we're not even in Sumeru yet, which arguably has like one of the most character dense stories. So feel free to leave ideas down below in the comment section of how you think I could fix this, because currently I'm all out of ideas. Also, while you're down there, subscribe, like, comment your favorite color. These videos take an insane amount of work, and listen, anything that will help get this on the algorithm, get this pushed, and cause this to not flop, I will indeed take, because if this flops, I flop. If you do want to refresh though, great time to pause right now and go to part 1 and part 2 and get that over with. So part 3 is going to cover patch 1.6 all the way up to patch 2.8 in Inazuma. Do keep in mind though, some events will be left out, including a majority of Enkanomiya, as Enkanomiya is so in-depth, it most likely will get its own dedicated lore wall. All right though, enough chit-chat. Let us get into the Unhinged recap of Genshin Impact part number 3. Starting with patch 1.6, this patch serves as a lead up to Inazuma and is the prologue Archon quest to chapter 2. This questline follows the past events with Dane, where we ran into our sibling and we will be reunited questline. For those that don't remember, we have Dane here, who is labeled as a white boy in a MySpace era, and we have our two siblings here on the top. Lumine is labeled should have been the main character, while Aether technically in canon lore is the main character. Oh, I should mention by the way that the lore wall has been updated in a brand new way, other than new characters, but actually new labels for all the characters. They're not their actual names. They're names that I decided to give them. For instance, one of my favorites in Inazuma, Yaimiko, is labeled the foxy lesbian that cannot be trusted. Personally, I think the names are very accurate. You know, we have Diluc over here, who's named Walmart Batman, Lovely Amber, who's labeled Rachel Berry, Barbara is just needs help, Rosaria needs Barbados. We'll go through them all eventually at some point. I'll mention them as we get through the characters and they come up in the story. We start off by meeting up with Otsuku, who fled from Inazuma after strict rules were put in place by the Raiden Shogun. Now listen, I know there are 3, and we will go over this when we can. This is the most confusing part of the storyline, so just wait, just bear with me. We ask Otsuku if she knows of a way that we can get into Inazuma, and while she's able to give us an answer, she warns us of the dangerous trip. We learn that not only is there a dangerous storm surrounding Inazuma currently, but if we do manage to get inside, we will have to go into hiding due to the isolationist policies set in Inazuma. She then refers us to Beto, who might know of a way to break through the storm, so we then head to Ganyu Stone Forest, where Alsalor is anchored to talk to Beto. Upon arriving, we meet Beto and an unknown man who we are introduced to as, and is now known as, Kazuha. I will not go over Kazuha's name currently because it is a bit of a spoiler, but just for those who want to know, Beto's name is lesbians who have too much power. Beto mistakenly thinks that the traveler is there to join a visionless martial arts tournament. The prize, though, being a masterless vision that Kazuha is providing in hopes that someone could reawaken it. Some interesting vision lore here. There's a lot of stuff to deal with visions in Inazuma in terms of lore and interesting new theories that definitely came out with this region. So the traveler agrees to partake in this event, but only because Beto says that if the traveler wins, they can pick between the vision and getting past the electro storm shrouding Inazuma. When we get into the arena, the first thing that we do is we scope out the competition. We're like, you know what? Who do we got to worry about? But quickly, we realize we don't really have any competition due to the fact that all the contestants are visionless. Obviously, as you guys know, the traveler is actually able to use all of the elements without being a vision holder, meaning they have an unfair ass advantage, which we will exploit. and we will win. We then register for the tournament and provide them that we aren't a vision holder. The first few rounds dealt with ease. Before the final round, Kazuha approaches us, letting us know that he knows we can harness the power of the elements without a vision. He asks about our ability to do so, but we're actually unable to answer his questions as we don't really know the reasoning behind it either. He then lets us test our skills against some slimes, and after this test, Kazuha reassures us that we should have no problem against our last opponent and gives us a bit more info on Inazuma and the Electro Archon. So the traveler arrives at the arena ready to absolutely beat ass, and it's an absolute no-show. The guy ain't there. Our final opponent. Our ticket in to Inazuma. Gone. Now, Kazuha senses that something's off, and when we go to check on the Masterless Vision, the earlier prize that we talked about, we realize it's been stolen. It's always the ones who can't even. Kazuha then reveals to us that he knows who the culprit is and where they're going. This man, he's observant. The culprit actually being treasure hoarders who knew he had no way of winning the fight once seeing the traveler fight off previous entries. I mean, to be honest, I would be scared as well. Like, we're throwing out tornadoes, we're like throwing out massive ass stones of rock, and these people are what, using their like hands and fists and maybe a shovel? I mean, listen, Shovel Girl did well in her day and age. We end up finding the guy and he tries to resist against us but fails, and Kazuha then threatens the treasure hoarder's life. He's a little angry. He's a bit much. He then obviously changes his mind rather quickly, and the vision is confiscated while letting the treasure hoarder leave. Kazuha then reveals to us that he knew the treasure hoarders would steal the vision, and he actually hoped it would have awakened them. At this point, we're like, bruh, why are you so interested in this thing? Like, why is this a big deal? Now sit down and grab the tissues. We come to learn that Kazuha's previous friend challenged the Raiden Shogun, aka the Electro Archon, when they enacted the Vision Hunt decree, more on that later, only to die in the ensuing battle. Kazuha unfortunately only arrived at the end of this duel, snatched the vision, fleeing the area. He did this in hopes that someone else could reawaken the vision, keeping the hope and ambition alive that his friend once had. Cue tears. Also, cue Kazuha's name, which is my friend died and I'm still mad about it. I mean, I get it, but like, it's kind of been a long time. Like, this is a long-lasting feud. Returning to the arena, we learned that Ningguang has summoned those running the tournament, Beidou included in that. Once filled in with the details from Kazuha, by default due to disqualification, the traveler is indeed crowned the winner, as we should, because what are we going through for this whole tournament? Kazuha then warns us of our travels to Inazuma and lets us know that he will continue on his journey to find someone to reawaken the vision as he travels across Liyue. And there you have it, the entire story synopsis of patch 1.6. This is the very last patch before finally getting the update into Inazuma. Also, pretty sure we're not going to see Ningguang again, so I'll let you guys know that her name is Ilona Musk. It's like Elon Musk. They were like a woman, so she's a businesswoman, but I feel like she would do better with Twitter. Like, I don't feel like Ningguang would have pulled an X. He's more like the SpaceX version of Elon, not the Twitter version. Listen, I wrote this 8 months ago. Elon Musk says a lot of dumb stuff in 8 months. Speaking of which, though, if you want some really great tweets and some really great guides for Honkai Star Rail or Genshin Impact, follow my Twitter at SipSipStefan. Thank you for the easy plug in, Ilona Musk. Patch 2.0 is the start of Inazuma, and honestly the start of a slow burn into absolute insanity. The traveler's story starts when we head back to Liyue to meet up with Catherine. In doing so, we meet up with a sea drake from Beidou's crew who lets the traveler know they're ready for their journey to Inazuma. We disembark at Rito, a small town outside of the main Inazuma city, and are greeted by Toma. Mr. Submissive and Breedable, who also happens to be Beidou's business partner. Toma had the girlies screaming with legs open in patch 4.0. I swear, the Toma Sim Club was wild back then. It's definitely toned down since, especially since a lot of hot men have come out. But like, Toma was the man. Like, if you were not legs open for child, you were legs open for Toma. Or you were legs open for both. Like, maybe that's what you're kind of into. Beidou lets us know, though, that she can't stay too long due to Kazuha, who is still a wanted fugitive. Not sure why we brought him along. Like, leave the man at home. Very excited that we're getting to the Inazuma side of the wall now. Toma helps us bypass the Rito's processing center, who is asking for an insane amount of mora in order to be put through. These crazy increases were put in place as a reaction to the Sakoku decree, in which Inazuma's borders were closed down. The prices were actually used as a way to deter newcomers from even wanting to enter into Inazuma. We also come to find out that an international trade association was formed by foreigners of Inazuma in order to maintain some amount of trade into the nation while the current ongoings were happening. This association also assisted those who entered from other regions as they were treated harshly. Toma is then informed on our goals in Inazuma, that being to meet with the Raiden Shogun. He says he can help us with that, but we must first help him with a few things. Listen, Toma, my sibling has been gone for 500 years, but sure, let me just help you with the dishes. Zero rush here. It's only been what? How many hours of gameplay at this point? The president of the Trade Association lets us know that the Kenjo Commission has continuously increased taxes and now has rejected Mora as a payment, instead requiring Crystal Moro, a rare mineral found in Inazuma. So yeah, the girlies are paying with rocks. I mean, I get it. The Crystal girlies on TikTok, absolutely wild. I know it's all the fad and flavor, but what? This change has caused an insane amount of demand for the Crystal Moro, forcing the association to the brink of homelessness. It is rough in Inazuma. Like, damn, going from Monza and Liyue, it's seeming like flowers and rainbows, and then you get to Inazuma and it's like, what is going on here? We agree to try and help and find the Crystal Moro, so naturally now we'll just go out, mine some Moro. Wrong? We can't even leave the village. Yep, without proper permits, we're stuck. This was all just a play to set us up and keep us stuck here forever. You know what, Hoyo? You were right. You did it well. It did feel like forever. I'm gonna be so real with you guys. This part of the Inazuma questline drags so hard. It was painful. I think it has a lot to do with this entire situation, dealing with a lot of NPCs that you don't really tend to remember. We end up meeting with a merchant though who sells Crystal Moro, and he refuses to negotiate with us. This is due to him finding out that we're involved with the trade association directly. We end up giving him an item from both Mondstadt and Liyue, which causes him to give in to his emotions. He also comes to admit to us that he is playing into a scheme led by the Kenjo Commission. Crazy what some dandelion seeds and a yellow ass rock can do to people. Before we go any further though, let me break down the political structure of Inazuma, because I feel like that's going to help a lot of you understand how this all comes together, because there's so many different commissions and so many different aspects. So I got you. I'm going to unconfuse you, and then we're going to move on with more of this quest line. You guys know me. I got you, lore skippers. I was just like you at one point, and now look at me. Mentally ill. So at the top, we have the Raiden Shogunate, who is the ruler of Inazuma, and below the Shogunate is the Tri-Commission, which consists of 3 different organizations which deal with matters throughout all of Inazuma. They all focus on different things. This is very similar to the Liyue Chising or the Mondstadt's Favonius Knights. As you can see, Genshin tends to copy and paste things because it makes life easier. I get it. When the Vigilant Decree was declared, the Yashiro Commission tried to appeal it, but was vetoed by the Tenryou Commission and the Kenjo Commission. God, how many times am I going to say commission throughout this entire breakdown? If anyone wants to be absolutely insane, if you want to put the total in the comments of how many commissions I say, I would love to know that. The Yashiro Commission focuses on managing shrines, festivals, and cultural events. They tend to have less influence though compared to the other 2 commissions. And this commission is actually led by the Kamisato clan. More on these 2 later. The Tenryou Commission is the executive branch of the Raiden Shogun, and it is led by the Kujo clan, aka Kujo. They manage security and military affairs and enforce the Vision Hunt Decree and the Sakoku Decree. Many members tend to leave this branch though, due to the fact that the realities and horrors that come with war are very taxing on most people. Also, side note, I'm sorry if I'm butchering the names in advance. I am indeed trying my best. This entire region is based on Japan, so a lot of the names come from that language. The Kenjo Commission's main job though is to manage finances, customs, and borders within Inazuma. This clan is the decider of who gets in and who gets out. They're also the main people who are abusive towards foreigners that reside in Rito. All right, back to the actual story now. Hopefully that cleared it up for you so you guys kind of know how all of these things come together. The Kenjo Commission buys up all the Crystal Moro only to give it to the merchant for him to resell in extremely high pricing to make an insane profit margin. So basically just a scam / exploit. We do decide to confront the leader of the commission, who makes a deal with us to give up the leftover Crystal Moro that they have. But before this happens, the merchant that we're with speaks up, addressing the man in a non-respectful manner, which leads to him then calling for the merchant's arrest. Oh, these NPCs are driving me nuts. Mr. Submissive and Breedable, aka Thomas, steps in and flashes the Yashiro Commission card. He's like, babes, do you know who the fuck I am? Which completely stops the arrest due to the leader then saying that they're worried about her being Ayaka. knew a girl with a 7 head could be so scary? We then also come to learn, though, that Toma is actually an attendant to the Kamisato clan and takes care of the eldest daughter, Kamisato Ayaka. It's actually very sad how little of a role Ayato plays in the Archon quest, so just so you guys know, he is here and he is a bubble tea addict. We're also told that Ayaka has heard of our previous feats in both Liyue and Mondstadt and hopes that we can come together to stop the Vision Hunt decree. So now you want me to save the world. What happened to the dishes, Toma? What happened to those? The traveler seems uninterested in helping and asks to meet with the Raiden Shogun, trying to keep the story on track. As they should, honestly, because we have been running around at this point. Toma then lets us know to meet at the Komoro tea house. So we then try to leave Rito, only to then realize again that we can't do so without a travel permit. Like, how long are we in this city for? Like, does anyone have the actual gameplay time? It really did feel like forever. And now that I'm going back to this recap, I'm realizing how long we are kept there. Anyways, heading back to the Kenjo office to meet with the commissioner, he agrees to help us as long as we complete his request. Favor City, that's what we should call it. We reluctantly take it on and then receive a letter from Miss Higiri addressed to someone within the Tenryou Commission. She also reveals to us that before we arrived, a woman came up to Inazuma and conspired with the locals to keep the traveler on Rito Island. Senora, you are so lucky you serve, cunt. The following day, she heads to a supply convoy and uses her position to force the 2 bodyguards to allow the traveler as her bodyguard to leave Rito. Yeah. That's how we get out. We fight off some bandits on the way out and arrive at our destination. Misagiri does remind us, though, to bring the letter to the Tenryou Commission in order to get the permit and head back to Rito. Misagiri then reminds us to bring the letter to the Tenryou Commission in order to get our permits, and she heads back to Rito. Instead of doing that, though, we head over to the tea house to meet with Toma. As a group, that being Toma, the Traveler, and sadly still Paimon, we end up visiting the statue in Inazuma City, which holds the seized visions of the Vision Hunt decree. The Traveler then touches the statue and seems to suffer a headache as they hear the lost aspirations of the seized visions. The guilt, it's seeping into my brain. I can't. Some of these moments, when I look back, I really can't. It really did improve in Sumeru and Fontaine. Anyways, guilt trip road trip. That's what this arc is being called here. The group then travels to the Kamisato residence where Ayaka waits, anticipating their arrival. Cutscene for that is very extra. Does make a moment when she enters. It's a little cringe, but it is what it is. She hopes that the Traveler will take up arms against the Shogun, and we continue to refuse, trying to focus on her own goals. Our lost sibling, the whole reason why we're here, and possibly the world ending, maybe, because who the hell was that girl in the sky? Literally had cubes that deleted people. Is anyone, worried? Ayaka then counters with a compromise and says she will bring them to the Shogun if they visit 3 people who've had their visions confiscated. They really want us to care. They're making it very hard to care, though. We meet up with a man in a local vision who has become visionless recently and was previously a samurai. He's seeking a way to leave the village as he can't remember why he stayed there in the first place. The Traveler and Paimon work together to refresh his memory by finding a paper that explains his reasons for staying. And that's where we come to find that he is awaiting his lover, but she never came. In the end, though, the man decides to continue to stay in the village waiting for her, but wonders if she'll ever come back. Honestly, one of the most tragic and relatable love stories in Genshin Impact, getting left on red because you lost your damn vision? Crazy. It's really interesting what people actually are here for in these relationships. Kaching didn't even want hers. She threw hers in a fire. Razor Cat headphone e-girl. The next person we meet is a samurai in the Tenryou Commission who lost his vision as well. His vision was taken from him even though he worked under the shogunate due to being accused of being lazy and slacking off. And after his vision was taken, he forgot what he had done and lost track of his previous responsibilities. If you don't get the vibe at this point, basically anyone who loses their vision kind of loses their ability to go forward in life and in a clear direction. They kind of lose their focus. A fight, though, then breaks out over some lost rations that the clueless samurai has no recollection of. We pursue the treasure hoarders behind the recent ration stealings, only to find out that the crate which houses the rations is filled with IOUs, all addressed to Miss Oi. We then find out that the visionless Tenryou samurai was actually using his own money to buy food for the locals and would even put himself in debt to help other people. Now that man, he's humble. I would never do that. personally. I would buy all the food for myself, but it's really great that he's that selfless. Finally, the third lost vision. The vision was held by a sword master who was located within the city. We go to the dojo only to be greeted by two disciples who are worried about their sensei, letting us know that they believe he's possessed. And they also believe that when his vision was taken away, he took a turn for the worse. There's a wide range, like what happens when you get a vision taken away, like, left unread or, complete total possession. They then let us know that they hired a grand Narukami shrine maiden to help exorcise the demon. Getting real horrorcore in here now. Now, while the exorcism is in motion, Paimon spots a suspicious person lurking around. We pursue them, forcing them to reveal themselves. He tells us that his name is Anzai and that he is the oldest disciple of the possessed sensei. He heard that the man had lost his mind and came back to see if the rumors were indeed true. As a group though, they head back to the dojo, suspecting the ritual to be over. The maidens then let us know that there was no demon that had currently been sensed and to head to the shrine tomorrow to talk to Yaemiko about this complicated case. Yaemiko being our absolute favorite character of Inazuma, at least mine personally. I don't know about you guys, you might not have taste. The following day, Yaemiko inspects the man and lets us know that he's in a state of mania due to the loss of his aspirations. The man then quickly comes to realize that he must move on from his past and thanks everyone before leaving. Yaemiko then makes an interesting and sly comment at us, saying our meeting was premature and she has high expectations for us. What do you know? I feel like this girly knows everything and I still feel like that now. I almost believe that Miko is like god tier level in terms of knowledge and she's really just hiding it. And this is something I would love to dive in deeper at some point. Let me know if you guys would like a Yaemiko deep dive video on her lore. At that point, we decide to head back to Ayaka and she reveals to us that this was an entire guilt trip and we agree to then help her go against the Vision Hunt decree, seeing the suffering firsthand. That easy for us to forget, but our main goal. She also lets us know that the resistance has been creating fake visions, but their suppliers have been recently arrested. So we agree to help break them out and make our way towards Yoimiya's fireworks shop. As we walk in though, we see someone getting their vision confiscated, and before we decide to intervene, a woman grabs our attention. This woman being Yoimiya. Yoimiya being the epitome of fire signs with fireworks. Very dangerous. Yoimiya lets us know though to not interfere because the vision that the guards are attempting to take is actually a dummy vision. This clearly shows us that the resistance goals is to use the fake visions as a way to throw off the commissionaries. Yoimiya then works with the traveler to break out the craftsman, and we do so by casually breaking and entering into a police station, only to come to find the craftsman being tortured by the guards. Before we can do anything, Miss Kujo Sara, aka the Raiden simp fandom, walks in scolding the group for their actions. Now this girly, when she walked in, I knew that this bitch could not be trusted. Yoimiya, sensing the vibes, sets off her fireworks to distract the guards, and Sara, as the traveler, makes a run for it with the craftsman. Sara catches them in their tracks, but allows them to go as the craftsman is in dire need of medical attention due to the previous torturing. And let's be so honest, this breaks like 50 million international laws, girly. She then lets us know though that she will be back for the craftsman at some point. Really sorry, interesting. Let me go call up my law girly Yenfei over here. Let me call her up. Let me see what she has to say about that, because I'm sure there's a lot she has to say about that. Yoimiya and the craftsman thank the traveler, and we return to Ayaka to give them the good news. We then come to learn from Mr. Submissive and Breedable Toma that the Tenryou Commission has been tasked with putting together a ceremony of some sorts. They let the traveler know to hang out for the next few days and relax. Exactly what I would love to do. And I'm gonna need a break because that was only chapter 1 of the Inazuma Archon quest. I feel like this quest was a lot of world building and mainly setting the stage for what is to come. And now that the stage has indeed been set, the problems of Inazuma will start to unravel. For those using timestamps to jump around, this marks the start of chapter 2 of the Inazuma Archon quest. Also a little bit of movie magic, but this is actually day 2 of filming as well. I know I look the same. Maybe I don't. I probably look freshly showered because I'm filming this in the morning, and the last part was filmed at night. Also, I just want to address it because I was thinking about this while I was sleeping last night. I know I haven't referred to the wall a lot, but honestly, one major issue which is talked about a lot in the Inazuma Archon quest is the fact that there are a lot of NPC interactions throughout the quest lines. I don't know why they decide to do this, but just a lot of the characters end up just being people that get forgotten or left behind or are unimportant. A few days later, the traveler returns to the Komore tea house. The traveler and Paimon go in looking for Toma, only to realize he's not there. Ayaka then walks in asking us if we've seen them, and we say no. Ayaka lets us know that her fears were indeed correct and the rumors rumors were true, Toma has been taken by the Tenryou Commission. She then goes on to say that Toma would become the 100th victim of the Vision Hunt Decree. At this point, Ayaka is basically losing her mind, and Toma and Ayaka have a pretty close relationship, but the Traveler and Paimon stop her. Ayaka intervening in this situation would implicate the entire Yashiro Commission and make them an enemy to the Shogun. In this case, we decide to go ourselves to save Toma and spare the commissionary. Arriving at the ceremony within Inazuma just in time to see Toma being held captive. We then catch a glimpse for the first time of the Raiden Shogun staring down upon him. The Shogun then does this really cool god thing where she uses her electro powers to pull his vision, and as it flies through the air, the Traveler intercepts it and grabs it. At this point, the guards holding Toma are like, what the fuck, who's this blonde bitch coming from the crowd? And at this point, we then turn around using our own electro affinity and knock out the two guards. Now again, this is the first time we actually come face to face with the Electro Archon. And when I tell you A makes an entrance, I mean it. This girly gave me chills. I'm telling you guys, if you've watched the trailer, you will know. She comes down walking on air, then declares that the Travelers are an enemy to her eternity and absolutely pops the fuck off. And this is the first time we actually get a chance to see an Archon's potential power as she pulls a fucking sword from her booba. I mean, Zhongli did what? Mr. Celia Mora? He did what? Played dead? And Venti, the weakest Archon, purified a liar? Be so for real. Raiden ate them all up. The Raiden Shogun then pulls us into another plane of existence where we come face to face with them in battle. Now, despite our power, the Shogun leaves us incapacitated as we lay there, and then the reality shifts back to the platform near the statue where Toma was being held. The Shogun slowly walks forward to finish off the Traveler, only for, thankfully, Toma to break free from his bindings and toss his spear towards her. This causes for a brief moment the Shogun to lose focus as she blocks the attack, sending Toma and the Traveler laying on the ground flying away. Using this momentum, the Traveler, Paimon, and Toma make a run for it and flee the scene. The Shogun then towards the crowd and the rest of Inazuma issues a warrant for the Traveler's arrest and states that she will strike twice against the Traveler the next time that they meet to ensure their death. Yeah, it's getting serious in Inazuma. Inazuma has got to be one of my favorite regions to experience in Genshin. There was just so much intensity. And that intensity didn't really exist in the other parts of the game at this point. I mean, obviously Sumeru and Fontaine came out and they brought a whole new level, but at this point in time, Inazuma was it. So after reaching far enough from the city, Toma lets the Traveler know he must go into hiding for quite some time and that we still have to presume the next leg of the journey on our own. He lets us know that our next goal should be to meet with the Watatsumi army. As we make our way through Yashiro Island, we overhear Shogunate soldiers talking about the resistance happening nearby, pushing for more territory in the Shogun's favor. We then run into two adventurers who let us know that a fight is happening nearby on Nizuchi Beach. Upon arrival though, the beach we notice is a resistance soldiers fight with the Shogunate soldiers. Arriving upon the beach, we realize that the fight is between both resistance soldiers and the Shogunate soldiers. And after confronting them, we come to meet a resistance soldier named Tepe. We'll address his name in a few. He lets us know that the general of the resistance, Goru, yeah, the furry dude, the furry fan service, running a whole army. Yeah, that Goru is looking for more like-minded people like the Traveler and that they would benefit the resistance with their use of elements without a vision. He also lets us know that the goal of the Shogun is eternity and that Kujo Sara is working with the Shogun and they control an exceptionally strong army, which honestly at this point we already knew. Sara has been on our ass. With Tepe, we make our way back to the resistance camp and are introduced to Goru, who asks us if we're certain we want to join this fight. I mean, at this point, I don't really think we have an option because it's either us versus the world or us with an army versus the world. We go with Tepe for a bit to look around the camp and make some introductions only to actually run into an attack against this base camp from the Shogun's army. These girlies are not letting up at this point. It is just a constant wave of attacks on different fronts at different areas, and it is definitely overwhelming Goru's army at this point. After helping to repel the attack, we help Tepe fix a wall which we suspect to be the cause as to why the Shogun army attacked. Obviously, this is due to them seeing a clear weakness and wanting to exploit it. We head back to Goro to report the repairs, only to find out that he's gone to go help in a fight against the Shogun's army. The lovely Kujo Sara, aka Raiden Sim Fandom, is trying to advance further upon them by applying pressure to the resistance. It's absolutely wild what the army will do for their mother. Like, let's just put it that way. Teppei and the Traveler decide to make their way to the fight to help as best as they can. Upon arrival, we hear Sara asking Goro for a deal, which is temporary peace if they hand over the Traveler. At this point, I feel like we really get to know Goro as he refusing to give up one of his own. It's giving Leo energy, and I'm not just talking about the entire main. Upon the Traveler and Teppei actually arriving though, Sara applauds us for our bravery. She then offers us a deal to represent the resistance in a fight of honor. We accept at this point, knowing that it possibly could be a trap, but Sara actually does not fight us one-on-one, and instead we go up against members of the Shogunate army. It's giving very 1.6, and again, like, these girlies don't have a chance. Your little spears aren't going to do much if I am sending electric rods at your ankles. After defeating the members that signed up, Sara lets us know that she is impressed by us, but then launches a full-scale attack upon the army. It's like, oh my god, that's so cute. Anyways, get him, boys. Now, this is a rather intense fight scene. We honestly don't get a lot of large-scale fight scenes in Genshin, and many of the members of the resistance side do die, and as it's just looking bleak, bubbles rise into the air. Now, personally, I don't really understand why everyone is acting absolutely shocked, but Kokomi does arrive, changing the tide of battle along with both Kazuha and Beidou. For those that don't know, Kokomi is our lovely mermaid girly here, also known as the dumbest war chief, and you'll see why later. Sara switches up real quick and realizes that she's grossly outnumbered at this point and calls for a retreat. Kokomi introduces herself to us and explains how she didn't expect us to join the resistance. Again, girl, it's not like we had a choice. She then asks us if we have any plans, and upon us saying no, lets us know to meet her at a shrine on Watatsumi Island for more information. Goro and Kazuha then go back to the original base camp that we were at previously to discourage any future Shogun attacks. And there you go, that is the entire 4.0 patch, leaving you on a bit of a cliff. Quick life update number 5 million. I've actually been recently diagnosed with ADHD, so I'm going to use that as my excuse as to why part 3 didn't end up coming out right after part 2. Not actually fully blaming it, but the ADHD girlies know, and you can let me know in the comments. It is so true. Long-term projects when you have ADHD are so hard to get through. You just kind of like lose that dopamine trigger of like working on something brand new very quickly. But I am medicated now, so that is why we are here. Patch 4.1 brings us to the climax and ending of the Inazuma Archon quest in part 3, wrapping this all up. Looking back now, Inazuma felt like it had so much story compared to Liyue and Mondstadt, but it was nowhere near what we ended up getting for Sumeru and Fontaine after. In 4.1, we start off by meeting up with Teppei, who lets us know that Sanguinamia Kokomi awaits us across the ocean waters. He then sails us to Watatsumi Island. I should probably have explained this earlier, as there may be people who watch these video series and don't actually play the game. Never realized that that was the thing. Like, I really wonder how many of y'all are just watching this but have never actually played Genshin, and this is just like background noise. Inazuma is a sort of archipelagical state, meaning it's a bunch of land masses that are smaller islands that are close together that form one region. It's similar to Japan IRL though. We end up finding Kokomi, who's having a conversation with a member of a Watatsumi army. Kokomi tells them to keep food and supplies steady as the army is continuing to expand. We then ask her about the recent expansions, and she lets us know that she's received an anonymous letter promising men and supplies as long as we continue to fight the Shogunate. So there are other members in the story that clearly want the same thing we want. She is suspicious of the anonymous letter's motives, but regardless, she ends up allying with them as she needs the supplies badly. I will give Kokomi some slack here. Times are rather desperate, and when going up against a godly being like Raiden, you probably want to take all the handouts you can get and advantages, regardless of the price you might pay. Sure. Kokomi sees our potential and then promotes us to Swordfish 2 Spec Ops Group Captain. I feel like that name could be workshopped. She hands us a letter to gain the squad's trust, but Teppei interjects asking what he can do to help Kokomi, but Kokomi literally just like kind of brushes him off. We then come to find 2 members, legit, only 2, of our group who inspect the letter. They are skeptical of us and have us take out a nearby group to prove ourselves worthy of the title captain. We then go on and clear out more camps holding area within Watatsumi Island. After clearing a few though, we head back to Kokomi for future instruction. Kokomi then thanks us and tasks us with heading to Fort Mumi, which was used as a supply transit during the previous Archon War. We come to also find that supplies have gone missing. When arriving at the island, we find some suspicious electro monuments, and upon activating them, are ambushed by a Thunder Laochuro. After defeating the enemy, Tepe does indeed arrive, and he seems under the weather. He's coughing and he looks a bit off, but he lets us know he thinks it's just a cold that he must have picked up while out on sea. Paimon then gets a strange feeling about the surrounding area, and Tepe lets us know that it might be due to the Tatarigami being more present due to the close proximity of the slain Urabashi. Urabashi related lore will be covered in Enkanamiya's Wall, FYI, so keep that in mind. But just for relevant information, Urabashi was a giant snake god that also ruled over parts of Inazuma in the past. Tepe then informs us on a rumor that the Raiden Shogun possibly lost something very important to her during the Conrian War. Interesting. Tepe also lets us know that the resistance was formed not because of animosity held against the Raiden Shogun, but due to the Vision Hunt decree that went against the Inazuma people. We then tell Tepe we will split up and let them rest while we go back to talk to Kokomi. At the shrine, we find Kokomi and Goru conversating and talking about the strange symptoms found within the resistance soldiers. So it seems like Tepe isn't the only one feeling this way. They explain that the soldiers were looking for ways to get stronger and got a secret weapon for one of their new sponsors. Goru then lets us know he got his hands on one of these weapons and shows it to us, and we immediately recognize it as a Fatui delusion. Both Kokomi and Goru are shocked to realize that their secret ally is more than likely the Fatui. Kokomi is rightfully concerned with stopping the use of the delusions, and her and Goru head to the army camp themselves. This is where we come to realize that Tepe's symptoms are more than likely due to the same reason and rush over to find him. Unfortunately, when we do find Tepe, he has aged significantly since the last time we saw him, with his brown hair being completely white-gray at this point. He then goes on to talk about the contributions he's made to the war effort and what he could have done if he was even stronger. We let him know about the delusion and its effects, and Tepe then realizes it must be the reason for his current state. Even so, in these moments, he denies his fate and lets the traveler know he will be back on his feet in no time, only to take his last labored breath in that moment right in front of us. Y'all, what? Like, this is the first actual impactful Genshin Impact death. Take notes, Zhongli. All he wanted to do was help people, and maybe if Kokomi just gave him an actual job instead of brushing him off, he wouldn't have felt the need to prove himself and then die to the delusion. Like, I'm not saying it's Kokomi's fault, but there's a reason. She has the dumbest war chief label on this wall. Kokomi and Goru meet us outside the training ground and let us know there's been a ban placed on delusions at this point. Unfortunately though, due to overuse, a few have lost vitalities and others other than Tepe have indeed passed away. The death toll of this war is quickly adding up. Goru tells us that some members refused and will continue to use the delusions knowing the risks, as the power they hold is too great to unfortunately not utilize. The traveler insists on taking our revenge on the Fatui, and although the group and Kokomi are hesitant, they do realize that the delusions must be being made on Yashori. Without hesitation in that moment, and honestly fueled by rage, the traveler heads there immediately, and as we clear the facility out, we come to realize that the Kenjo Commission has been collaborating with the Fatui for this entire time. The Fatui subordinates desperately hold us off until Scaramouche's arrival. Oh, it's gonna get so juicy. It's gonna get so juicy. You know when the Fatui shows up, it is about to be insanity. Quick recap on the Fatui. The Fatui Harbingers are an almost government-like branch that come from Chesnaya. Chesnaya being the region of Cryo, the region of Ice. Not found on this wall. We're not there yet. Not even in current game time. The members of the Fatui are diplomatic envoys under the rule of both Piero and the Cryo Archon. And to recap the most updated order, we have Grand Zaddy Piero at 0 and not actually on the list. The Geo Yaksha, aka El Capitano, at number 1. Dottore, which is evil but smash, at number 2. Columbina, the Tumblr sad girly, at number 3. Arlecchino, our sassy serial killer, at number 4. Klee's dad, Pulcinella, at number 5. Yes, that is my theory. I don't want to talk about it. Number 6, my Ussy gone crazy, Scaramouche, who got Irminsold, but we'll talk about it later. Remember that name, but not for too long. Number 7, going to Iroh, robot Cendron. Number 8 being Gabby Hanna, aka Miss La Senora. Number 9 being the lovely Pantalone, which is known as Baiju, but make it emo. Number 10, which isn't on this list because it's actually empty. And number 11 being the mistake of the group, aka Child. All right, now back to the story. So Scaramouche claims that he actually isn't the mastermind behind Inazuma, but is simply following orders. Find that hard to believe with his bratty ass. The traveler collapses as he continues to monologue on, letting us know that the facility is infested with the energy from the old gods who sense our anger. As our eyes quickly fade to black, we spot the sneaky Yaimiko enter the room. This was an episode of Pretty Little Liars. You would be gagged to be like, she's A. I knew it. It was Arya all along. As we awaken in the Grand Narukami Shrine in a turn of events, Yaimiko is there to explain that we are the only person who can save Inazuma and A. Oh, we're about to get into it now. She explains to us that the person we saw at this ceremony with Toma was not actually the Electro Archon, but instead a vessel of the Electro Archon she uses, known as the Raiden Shogun. She then tells us that the sword used in the Mosu no Hitachi art is instead A. Let's get into this 3A breakdown. We have A, the sword, aka the gaslighter of the group. We have the Raiden Shogun, aka Gatekeep, which is the person that you see on the outer side of the world of Inazuma, who isn't actually a real person, is more close to like a robot, basically. And finally, we have Makoto, our girl boss, who unfortunately passed away in the Conrian War. Now, just to let you guys know, not to be confused, Makoto isn't an exact twin like A and the Raiden Shogun are. Makoto did look a bit different to her sister, but they were indeed very alike and played the role of the Electro Archon as one being, even though there were two. Now, this information was not known by the Inazuma people. I know it's super confusing, and there's actually a ton of lore to get into later on about that, but I want to give you guys that information now because I do think it's important and kind of gives you an idea of how this whole system is working together, especially with the whole going between dimensions and like the person on the outside versus the inside and the brain and the sword. It's a lot. Like, it took a long time for the community to really wrap their head around this idea. Yaimiko lets us know that if we can defeat A within her plane of existence, that she may remove the Vision Hunt decree. Now, Yaimiko knows what we're up against, as her and A actually go way back. Rumor has it that they're girlfriends, but we will save that for Twitter. Now, after we go through our specialized anti-Archon training, we head back to the shrine with Yaimiko, who informs us there that a guest is awaiting our arrival. That guest being none other than Kujo Sara, the Raiden simp, is back. She immediately demands for the traveler's arrest. Miko, with some much-needed sass, puts that girlie in her place and reminds Sara that there is a no violence law at the shrine. This was all planned. Like, she's good for that one. She's like, nice try, but you ain't arresting anyone here. She then goes on to explain to Sara that the Vision Hunt decree has actually been orchestrated by the Fatui, pulling strings from behind the scenes. Now, Sara refuses to believe this, which I get and makes sense because it's her entire worldview being shattered. And Sara makes a deal with Yaimiko, letting her know she has 3 days to prove this claim. And Sara only agrees that on the basis that it's false, the traveler will be forced to come with her. She leaves, and Miko lets us know to get in contact with a professional to help gather evidence. This professional is our little useless ninja Sayu, who is a member of the Shumatsuban, a secret organization under the Yashiro Commission. That commission being the Ayaka and Ayato one. We go back to the tea house, and Toma is there asking us to bring Ayaka over. Once she arrives, they come up with a plan to infiltrate the Koju Commission and obtain some documents. Now, they get Yoimiya involved once again to set up a distraction with her fireworks display, and everything goes according to plan, and Sayu is able to sneak in, grab the large amounts of documents before heading out and back to sleep. Sayu is honestly me if I ended up in the corporate world. Just go to work, answer some emails for an hour, and then call it quits in my cubicle and go to sleep. The group looks through the documents and finds war reports and another stating the collaboration with the Fatui. We quickly take this evidence and head back to the shrine. Upon our return, though, Sara is already there questioning Yaimiko for the evidence. We hand it over, and upon reading the documents, Sara becomes enraged, storming off to confront her adoptive father on the matters. We love family drama here, so we do indeed follow her, but just as we're about to leave, Miko lets us know we must recreate the situation in which our first encounter happened in order to enter into A's realm. We return to town with Sara, and she realizes that we've followed her at this point, but accepts us as a witness to this confrontation. She does quickly let us know that if we are deceiving her, we will pay the price. We're still Delulu, but here we go. She forcefully removes the guards as she approaches her adoptive father with the documents in hand. Like, this girl is upset because she's been kind of living a lie up until this point. He does not deny it and states that the Fatui were helping to preserve the clan's power. And then reveals to us that Senora is actually on her way to meet with the Raiden Shogun right now. It's at this point that we really realize Senora has orchestrated all of this all along from the beginning at Rito Island to now. And we decide to meet up with Senora and A ourselves. Now listen, Senora is really putting in the work, drop kicking an Archon, grabbing the Liyue Gnosis, and now this. Like, your faves? Could never. As we make our way inside, we realize that Sara was already on her way there as well and dealt with most of the guards. Inside though, we see the Shogun, Senora, and Sara unconscious on the floor. Kind of crazy. The Shogun scolds Senora for punishing Sara as she doesn't have the authority to do so. We quickly accuse Senora of her crimes, but she plays the innocent and dumb card and reminds us that we are Inazuma's most wanted criminal. She's not wrong for that. This might have not been our best move. We then challenge Senora into a duel before the throne, and the Shogun accepts it. Quick note, duels before the throne, if you lose. Senora accepts it, thinking she will confidently win, but is shocked when she is quickly dealt with by the Traveler. The Shogun walks towards the two, that being the Traveler and Paimon. At this point, I am shaking and I am shitting. It's over, y'all. But instead, she passes the Traveler and Paimon and heads for Senora. Senora claims diplomatic immunity, but is silenced as the Shogun executes her with the Mosu no Hitachi. At this point, the Traveler's world is rocked, not only due to the fact that they see A's true uncaring attitude, but also her ability to take out a member of the Fatui in the blink of an eye. This death weighs heavy on the Traveler, as although this isn't the first time we've dealt with the death itself, this death feels like a direct resultant of our own actions. A then allows us to leave with our life for winning the duel. Don't feel like that's gonna last very long though. As we leave, we really begin to feel the influence of the Raiden Shogun's power, as it is immense, causing us to have almost like a radiating headache. As we try to make our way out of the city, upon exiting the main grounds, we come upon the resistance along with Goru and Kazuha. They both stop with horror upon their faces as the Shogun's sigil appears behind us. Now, Kazuha, with the power of his vision and the masterless vision from way back in 1.6, the one from his dead friend, finds the strength to intercept the surprise attack against the Traveler. Kazuha is then knocked away quickly by the Shogun. At this moment, the Resistance and Goru begin a charge attack against the Shogun head on. The Traveler, knowing the group is no match for the Raiden Shogun, attacks first and instead arrives at A's plane inside the plane of Euthymia. Inside the plane, A tells us that she allows the Vision Hunt decree to go on despite the Fatui's involvement because it poses no threat to her idea of eternity. We then proclaim our goal to demolish her notion on eternity and challenge her to a duel. During the duel, the Traveler finds themselves at an honest standstill, unable to make much ground on the fight. Even with our previous training, A's power is immense, and y'all, this fight was actually hard back then, okay? Especially if you were like me, where I was rather casual at the time, it was honestly a lot. The music was so intense, it had my heart racing. Like, I remember this moment to this day. Just as you feel the fight slipping out of your favor, you remember the gift Yaimiko gave you and use it, causing her to appear on the plane. Now, A is absolutely stunned by seeing Miko. And at this point, A clues in that Yaimiko has been in on this plan all along. Miko then informs the Traveler to tap into the visions entrapped in the statue. When doing so, the Traveler finds a new ambition. This newfound ambition hyperpowers the Traveler, allowing them to defeat A. A concedes defeat, but initially says she thinks she's doing the right thing. Miko tries to reason, explaining to A that she's committing more harm than good to the people she is trying to protect, with her idea of eternity. A decides to lift the Vision Hunt decree and also has the Shogun return the visions to their rightful owners, provided that they can be found and are alive. A also has the commissioners of both the Kenjo and Tenryou clans arrested for the plot with the Fatui. We then later meet Miko back at the shrine, who informs us that they gave the Electro-Gnosis to Scaramouche as a trade for the traveler's safety. So there is that little plot where we were unconscious. Miko then gives us some interesting information and explains that prior to A's meditation, she gave the Gnosis to Miko as it was a sign of conflict and she wanted to cut all ties with Celestia. Lastly, she lets us know that she will help us look for a sibling and suggests we head to Sumeru next. Yeah, our sibling, right? Yeah, that's why you're here the whole time. I don't even know how many minutes this video is in, like 40, 50 minutes? Imagine that in gameplay. Quick outfit swap, because this is day 3 of filming this video. We are completely through the Archon quest, so now we are going to be going through the series of patches within Inazuma, starting with 2.1 and going through all the way to 2.8. I'm going to be covering the major story events that happen within these patches. I won't be covering all the individual world quests or anything like that. We only get into major world quest series in Genshin within Sumeru and Fontaine. In Inazuma, we didn't really have anything like that when it comes to like the R&R quest line or like the Melazine quest line in Fontaine, so just keep that in mind. In patch 2.1, we got Watatsumi Island and Seirai Island. Watatsumi Island was created by Orobashi after the Archon War. The giant corals found actually on the island broke off of Orobashi's body. Now, although we don't cover Enkanomiya in this video, the people found in Enkanomiya became the ancestors to the people that now live in Watatsumi Island. And those that live there worship the Watatsumi Okami instead of the Shogun. Now, the distance between the Inazuma city and the island allowed the island to develop with its own culture. Many people of Inazuma are well aware of the poor relationships that hold between the Raiden Shogun and the island itself. And as a result of the Vision Hunt decree and the hostility between the Sangonomiya clan and the followers of the Shogun, those tensions were pushed to an all-time high. And Watatsumi Island rose as a direct opposition to the decree. After the abolishment of the Vision Hunt decree, the relationship between Watatsumi Island and the rest of Inazuma was working to be repaired. Seirai Island is an island under perpetual thunderstorms due to the thunder manifestation. It is said that a great calamity once occurred here, causing the perpetual bale thunder throughout the region. What we do know of this island is that there are ruins that exist beneath the lake bed of the Electro waters. This gives us a possible clue to a distant past where possibly this island homed an ancient civilization. Interestingly enough though, the nearby Tsurumi Island, which released in patch 2.2, has lore directly connected to this island, so we'll take a look at that as well to explain kind of both of them. Tsurumi Island was once home to Konakapatzer, a powerful entity that lived a long time ago. Though the exact date is unknown, it's thought to be like thousands of years. This entity eventually became the Thunderbird, but not before witnessing some strange events. The main one being objects falling from the sky onto the islands. Currently in the Genshin Impact Lore and theory community, this is heavily speculated to be celestial nails that have not been discovered yet. Apparently, these objects produced the fog that covered a majority of the islands. Shortly after, a civilization moved into Tsurumi Islands and worshipped Kana, being both thankful and fearful of her. As we are with most gods. It's like a little bit of like, thank you so much, but like, please do not smite me. For some reason, blood sacrifices were the go-to gift for her. Wonderful. Very, very on brand for Genshin, apparently. Hilariously, they would interpret anything Kana did as divine messaging and influence, but Kana lets us know that really they're just going about their day and not caring. There was this massive bird, so you could think like, oh, the bird just like flew over the sky and covered the sun, and the people were like, oh my god, it's an eclipse! It's a sign from the gods! I guess it's kind of like whenever Taylor Swift like does anything, the Swifties act very similarly, like it's divine messaging. She like blinks and they're like, rep is coming out tomorrow, everybody save the day. I don't think there are blood sacrifices coming from the Swiftie community, but I would not be surprised if I found out about it on some like weird random Twitter forum. To my knowledge, there aren't currently any ongoing blood sacrifices coming from the Swiftie community, but if I found out about it, would I be surprised? No. We then come to learn that the tribe even believed that the fog that was placed on the island to protect them was actually to protect them from the sea of darkness beyond the island. That line is really interesting now that I have a lot of context from Fontaine, might need to go back and make a lore video on that island alone now. Now, one day, a boy named Rou sang to the clouds, catching Kana's ear. The boy and the bird bonded for a moment, and Rou promised to sing out to her again. Very cute relationship, like what could go wrong? Soon after, Kana landed back on the mountaintop they once met at, only to be met with a cup of blood. The tribe had decided to sacrifice Rou to the bird, thinking that this is what Kana wanted. We love child sacrifice in this house. Kana saw this as a murdering of an innocent, which, fair enough, and in a fit of rage, killed everyone on the island with lightning. Honestly, I would do the same. I would have done the same. The island was then cursed to be covered with fog until she could hear Rou singing once again. So aka never, because he's dead. Actually, you do end up clearing the fog if you do the quest line. It takes like 5 days. It's ridiculous. Eventually, though, the Raiden Shogun, while ruling over Inazuma later in the future, decided to kill the Thunderbird as she was an enemy to eternity and the progress of Inazuma's people. Although the Thunderbird is technically dead, her god-like anger and resentment still lives on. And that is what you see currently on the islands. And that wraps up the major regions and everything that happened between 2.0 to 2.2 that was outside of the Archon quest. So now we're going to get into 2.3, which by far is one of my favorite event quests that have happened to date. And this is us actually returning to Mondstadt in Dragonspine. There is so much lore that comes out from Mondstadt, and we are going to be talking mainly about Albedo. His name is named Sus because honestly, I agree with Rosaria, the one who needs Barbados over here, that Albedo has just something to hide. And listen, later on, you get into like the Hexen Circle and his connections, and I know that this man is important to the lore. Featured in this quest also is the lovely Eula, our queen of ice baths, that she shares with Amber. By the way, casual, just jumping into an ice bath with a friend. They are just really good friends. Rachel Berry would. Oh my god, Bennett! Oh my god, I just realized that Bennett is in this quest line and he's not on the wall. Hold on, y'all. Bennett, aka our only Notling Crumb, literally. Still, like to this day. Patch 2.3 opens up with us returning to Mondstadt to find Sucrose, aka Miss Breaking Bad, and Albedo. We then ask them if there's a way to keep fruit indefinitely fresh, and Sucrose lets us know they're unsure and to ask Albedo. Unfortunately though, by this point, Albedo actually already had left the conversation and was on their way to Dragonspine. We head to the Dragonspine camp and come to find the Adventurers Guild is helping members train in a safe and ideal way. In training excursions and giving military camp. We then find Amber, who's accompanying Joel before Eula ends up joining them. Later on, we run into Albedo within Dragonspine, who is looking for star silver for painting. For those who don't play Genshin, star silver is a type of ore that is only found within Dragonspine. We ask Albedo to teach us how to paint, and he actually agrees, and we head to his base only to find it completely trashed. Luckily, Albedo spots some tracks, and we pursue it into a cavern. Now, Albedo tells us to wait outside while he goes to investigate, so we continue to grab star silver nearby. And when Albedo comes back from the cavern, he lets us know that the thief was faster than he anticipated. We then come to hear yelling across a nearby lake, and we spot Bennett being trapped by the Fatui. We end up freeing Bennett pretty quickly and turn around to realize that Albedo has disappeared. With that in mind, we go back to the cavern entrance to look for him and run into him. He then questions us why we didn't remain at the entrance. But like, we literally just talked to you. As we're in our moment of confusion, Eula actually appears and accuses Albedo of malicious intent. She then goes on to explain that when she was training some adventurers, she saw Albedo taking another adventurer to a dangerous section. And then apparently when Eula went to confront him, she was attacked by him before running away. The Albedo that we're with currently in this conversation then realizes that he's being impersonated, most likely by the thief he's pursuing. Not the doppelganger moment, call the Vampire Diaries. Now, Eula at this moment is skeptical, but decides to believe Albedo for now. We then head back to Albedo's camp to help him clean up, and he tells us he's actually a synthetic human made by Reindodir, aka Gold. And if you didn't know, that's the same person who made Durin, the dragon that died on Dragonspine. Now listen, at 2.3, we really didn't understand how deep the Rhine-Dodier lore goes, but by the time you are at 4.2, you will realize, oh my god, there are so many connections? Albedo tries to take on this giant problem himself, but we insist on continuing to help him find this thief and impersonator. The following day, the group of adventurers all meet at the base camp when suddenly an avalanche occurs. The group is then split and they are able to find Bennett, but Albedo unfortunately is not found. He then shows up quickly after, but both Eula and the Traveler are highly suspicious at this point. Albedo suggests taking a shortcut to get back to the base camp, and when Amber and Bennett stop to rest, Albedo turns to attack the group with cryo attacks. For those that don't know, Albedo is a Geo user, so this is a big red flag. They fend him off for a moment before he faces them and charges a powerful cryo attack. Before he can get it off, he is stabbed from the behind, revealing the real Albedo behind him. The stabbed Albedo mutates into a Whopper flower, and after being defeated, Albedo lets us know that he thinks Durin's blood corrupted the Whopper flower and had it have the ability to mutate and mimic human beings. We then come to learn that Albedo had a previous version of himself that was made by his creator Gold that seemed to not go to plan. Albedo believes that this iteration is the reason for the current events. For those that do want a bit more context as to what is going on with the current information that we have, it really does seem like Rhine-Dodier was on a quest to perfect the idea of creating synthetic humans. With the knowledge that we have now, we do know that the previous iteration of Albedo for some reason did not meet Gold's standards. And I think in current lore, we believe that she fed the bad version of Albedo to Durin, and then when Durin died on the top of Dragonspine, we think that that is how the old version of Albedo was released. Now, I feel like something that we don't talk about is the fact that there is still technically that fake version of Albedo that exists in the Genshin lore that was not killed, because the Whopper flower was something completely separate. So there were really three Albedos. There was the real Albedo, the Whopper flower Albedo, and then the actual failed fake version of Albedo. Very curious to see if that ever comes back in Genshin lore. I really hope it does. It's so interesting. Also, another thing for you guys to know about Albedo while we are here is that Rhine-Dodier tasked Albedo to find, quote, the truth of this world. For those that play Genshin up to date currently, that is just a whole bag of everything. So you guys can just sit with that. I definitely agree with Rosaria though. Albedo, sus. I would keep an eye on him as well if I was from Mondstadt. All right, and that wraps up 2.3. Patch 2.4 took us back to Liyue for the Jade Chamber's return and to Enkanomiya. Again, we won't be covering Enkanomiya in this video, but I just thought I would let you guys know the timeline. Several months after the sacrificing of the previous Jade Chamber, Ningguang announces that she will be rebuilding the Jade Chamber. She lets the people of Liyue know she's requiring Sunset Vermilion Knight, Wonder Core, and Adepti Sigils. She decides to make a competition out of this, and the first 3 people who can acquire these materials for her would be allowed to ask any question. And she lets us know that she would give an honest answer as a response, which is very interesting because I'm like, okay, so are you like a liar regularly? Is this like a new thing for you? While this is all going on, the Traveler and Paimon spot 2 men harassing a woman for money to pay off their own gambling debts. I didn't realize we were putting the Genshin community in this game, but it's really nice that they have their little moment. She begins to activate some sort of like exorcism sigils, but before anything can happen, the men are apprehended. Now this woman introduces herself as Shenhe, aka Cryo Wanda. She remarks that she would have smashed their heads in if they had continued, but she lets us know that she's hungry, and we decide to take her to Babu Pharmacy for herbs as it's her preferred diet. Let me some rosemary in the morning. That's a good chew. Shenhe eats the herbs quickly and then tells us she came to Liyue to see the rebuilding of the Jade Chamber. She thanks us for our help and suggests we take out the rest of the competition even though she isn't interested in partaking in it herself. The lovely Baiju then enters and lets us know that Sunset Vermilionite is actually very rare and that the Feiyun Commerce Guild would know more about it. All right, pause. Let's just address Baiju's name on the wall, which is Dendro Archon. Now listen, if you were part of the community in the Inazuma series, you will understand there were theories on theories on theories that Baiju was the Dendro Archon back then, even though he came from Liyue, which I don't know why we thought that that would have been the case. And listen, I'm gonna try and see if I can find any theories from back then, but they were kind of believable. Like some of the things were adding up, and he was very sus, and he had been in the game since 1.0. It's obviously funny now because we obviously know that the Dendro Archon is Nahida, spoiler alert, but like damn, it really just goes to show you how delulu the lore girlies are day in, day out. But I also want to bring this up that it's okay to have crazy theories that end up being wrong. I feel like everyone in Genshin is so obsessed with like never being wrong and like always having everything 100% right. And no one ever wants to take some risks and put out some like outlandish idea. But that's honestly the funnest part about Genshin and Genshin lore, at least in my opinion. You guys can let me know. Like the crazy theories that like, you know, hang on by a thread, but just might have some sort of truth to them are always like the best ones. You should see half of my theories in chat. I honestly thought at the end of 2.8 that we were going to crack the sky open. We'll get to 2.8, but it didn't end up being that. But some of the best side theories end up also having like the best storylines, which honestly, sometimes when you read these theories, you're like, damn, that would have actually been better if that happened. We then meet with Singshu, our studious guy, who informs us where it's possible to find the material. Now, this requires them to go into the Adepti Sea Grazer's abode. Thankfully, Shenhe, with a connection to the Adepti, helps us get in with her Adepti magic, and after getting past a few complicated puzzles, we are able to get the Vermilionite. Shenhe delivers it on our behalf and is complimented by many of the people involved, which leaves her feeling a bit uncomfortable. As you get to know Shenhe more, she definitely comes off very introverted, especially due to the things in her past, which I will be so excited to explore when we get into story quests. The group and Shenhe stay the night at the local hotel, and when going to grab a snack, we run into the Cloud Retainer, who lets us know that Shenhe is actually their responsibility. Now listen, I don't have the Adepti with individual names. I just call them Animal Power Rangers because I just feel like one day they're gonna like merge into some like giant Adepti mech. We do learn that Shenhe is on a mission though to see how Ningguang handles contracts between Liyue and its people. And interestingly enough, the Adepti tell us that they can sense a calamity coming soon. If they know all these things, why don't they just like say it instead of being so cryptic? The next morning, Shenhe and the Traveler and Paimon go to see the building progress on the Jade Chamber. And we arrive to see the chamber built but still incomplete. This is where we meet Yuchin, the young opera singer from Liyue, who is interested in the contest as well. Listen, she's labeled as Mariah Carey because this girlie has pipes. We team up with her and Beidou, agreeing to split the prize and all ask a question if we win. I like how the group's just rewriting the rules at this point, but let's just go with it. We go with Yuchin and Shenhe into the city to find someone who can make wonder cores. They end up collecting the material needed and return it to Master Zhang, who gave them the required material list. Throughout the search for the materials, Shenhe and Yuchin talk about their past, revealing Shenhe's troubled upbringing and struggles. It wouldn't be a Genshin character if there wasn't just an absolutely awful backstory. Like, there's no one that's just like, oh, I had like a great life, like it was a really good time. Like, everyone's like, no, my whole family was murdered in front of me. We create the Wonder Cores, but not before seeing Zhao, we'll get into his name later, who lets us know that he's preparing for danger in the sea, but cannot get involved. Not these damn Liyue waters acting up again. We ignore it though. We take back the core and the Adepti sigils and hand them to be crowned the winner of the contest. We are then led up to the Jade Chamber and Ningguang thanks us. The lovely Yuchin is asked to hold an opera performance up in the sky once the Jade Chamber is back into the air. When talking to Ningguang, unfortunately, she's unable to provide us with any information on our sibling, but lets us know in the future, if we are in any need for financial assistance, that she would do her best to help us. Oh my god, we love the Bank of Mother. Shenhe then asks us if there's a place for her to fit in within Liyue Harbor, and Ningguang tells her the key is to develop that sense of belonging. Honestly, so sweet. Like, Shenhe is like so amazing. She just like really wants to be a part of the community. Beidou joins us and asks if the preparations are done, and Ningguang fails to tell us what's going on. Then suddenly the Jade Chamber ascends into the sky, and just as it reaches its rest, a storm suddenly comes with a monster appearing. Like, we just got this girly back in the air. It's been literally 2 seconds. The monster is Fischl, the wife of Osai. Yo, another one. So tired of these ocean girlies. Now, at this point, Ningguang admits to knowing that this was coming, as Beidou warned her months prior. Not them talking on their own off camera. What's going on? We then tell her we'll call on the Adepti, but she stops us saying this time the people of Liyue will defend themselves alone. Okay, pop off, Ning. She was ready. She was ready to pop off. Ning then releases a barrage of missiles from herself and the Jade Chamber, as well from the battalions on the ground, one stationed on Beidou's ship. Like, this girl had a plan, and she was like, the girlies of Liyue are gonna show up. Adepti who? We don't need you. Back to Zhongli and his fake dead cell. The creature war is creating a tsunami, and as we launch ourselves towards the enemy, we are blasted by a powerful beam, sending us into a wall of rock and knocking us It's the way we can like deal with any element, and yet we're really getting shown up by some water dragon. Shenhe thankfully saves us from plunging into the water lifelessly and then steps towards a wave, sending out a powerful cryo attack. The tsunami freezes and crumbles into the ocean, allowing the projectile attacks from the people of Liyue to continue. Now, just to let you guys know, Shenhe is not fully Adepti. She's only raised by the Adepti, so keep that in mind. The monster retreats into a vortex within the ocean, only for Shenhe and the Traveler to follow it, plunging down into this water vortex as well. Both Shenhe and the Traveler work together to slay the monster, and when they arrive back at the harbor, Ningguang congratulates them and invites them back to the Jade Chamber. I'm gonna say this is a win for everybody because this time we did not need to sacrifice the Jade Chamber as a nuclear bomb into this thing. Progress, you guys. Look at Liyue growing. The Cloud Retainer actually commends them on the hard work they put in to prepare for this situation and commends Shenhe for their involvement. This was a really important moment for Liyue, especially because it really showed that the people of Liyue did not need to rely on both Zhongli and the Adepti any longer and can stand on their own. My personal opinion, though, is I do think that this is going to have waves of problems in the future against Celestia. Ningguang invites the group up to the Jade Chamber to celebrate, and Yuqin performs. While the group is up in the Jade Chamber celebrating, Yuqin actually ends up performing the Divine Damsel of Devastation, an opera centered around Shenhe's story. And that is the closing of the interlude and the 2.4 quest line. I'm going to be honest though, every time that the Jade Chamber has been involved in a quest line, the cinematics that come with it are always like some of the best in the game. We don't get a ton of action sequence cinematics, so that's why I really appreciate them usually, because for some reason, every time that thing is in the air, they are freaking out in Liyue. Patch 2.5 didn't have much in terms of major story events, but it did bring us the Raiden Shogun story quest part 2. Although I'm not covering story quests in this series, I will mention a bit of information as it is relevant to the overall plot. The 2.5 story quest brought us the battle against the Raiden Shogun and some much needed backstory to Inazuma during the war 500 years ago. This story quest eventually leads A against the Raiden Shogun itself to battle it out. This entire battle was basically forcing A to finally stand up against her previous idea of eternity. For those that don't realize, another tidbit of information for those that want it, the Raiden Shogun that existed outside in Inazuma was only really programmed to one thing, which was to pursue that version of eternity. That robot never had any programming or any ability to kind of discern the grays and the blacks and whites. It was always dead set on one thing and one thing only, meaning A had to put it in its place. In this questline, we also come to learn that the great Sakura tree found in Inazuma was planted by a sister Makoto with the help of one of the 4 shades. They're known as Istaroth, the Shade of Time. The most interesting part of this quest is the idea of time looping that is explored at a basic level. Makoto went back in time to plant the tree so that it would appear fully grown in the future, aka current day. It's not fully explained how the mechanics of this works and its true impacts on the actual timeline throughout the period in between, but this does give us a glimpse into the other levels of power that exist within the world of Genshin. Again, if you guys want me to cover all the story quests in my own mini-series, feel free to let me know down below, or you can go to the community tab. And that brings us officially to patch 2.6, which is the Chasm story quest. We meet Catherine at the Adventurers Guild branch where she lets us know there's a special commission involving the Chasm awaiting us. On the way, we are greeted by 2 Millith guards who recognize us from our previous battles within Liyue. They let us pass into the Chasm, and that is where we find Yuhi, the poster of this Chasm commission quest. We are then told that the Qixing has reopened the Chasm, and they were the first team to get a permit to the mine of the outskirts. One of his team members, though, saw a hilichurl mindlessly entering the Chasm, and they suspect something more sinister is going on. At this point, we agree to investigate, thinking something Abyss related could be connected to what is happening in the Chasm with the hilichurls. Now, the Chasm itself is sealed, but we do find a way to unlock it, letting us delve deeper and underground. As we explore further inside, we come across an underground ruin similar to the ones with the defiled statue in the previous 1.4 storylines. Just as we come across it, Dainsleif runs into us and is surprised to see us there. For those who want to know what Dane's name is on the wall, it is White Boys on MySpace. If you're my age or a little bit older, you definitely know. You get it. The haircut makes sense. Dane lets us know that he's looking for an Abyss Lecter on the run when it retreated into another portal. He goes on to let us know that the Abyss portals are directed by the person that creates them, and when he ran into the portal the last time, he saw it lead him into Storm Terror's lair. He then also gives us a bit of information about his relations to Conria reluctantly, but listen, we gotta get all the information we can get in these quest lines with the Dane. Like, he is only there for maybe one time a year and one time a year only, so the questions just keep coming. But Dane then inquires as to why we have decided to visit the chasm, and we explain to him we're commissioned to inquire about the Hilichurl activity going on here. Dainsleif then tells us the area within the chasm seems to lessen the curse laid upon the Hilichurls. And creepily enough, many of them actually come to the chasm to die. We also learn that many of them come here to die, and also that the Hilichurls hail from Conria itself, and the masks are used to hide their actual faces. After this conversation, two Black Serpent Knights attack, which we end up repelling. Dane lets us know that the Black Serpent Knights were originally men under his own command in Conria, but due to the curse have lost all their honor. In reference now, the curse that everyone is talking about is a curse put upon the people of Conria after the Conrian War 500 years ago. They spot another knight in the distance, but it doesn't attack and stares at the group for a moment before retreating. The traveler then wonders if the knights somehow have the ability to retain some amount of memory despite lacking anything. They refer to it as it. I'm assuming it is kind of like humanity to some degree. Dainsleif then quickly dispels a barrier that lets us enter upside down ruins. And again, he's doing that whole crazy blue magic that we still have no idea what that is. They enter the ruins to find a group of Black Serpent Knights that, when defeated, reveal a group of Hilichurls that they were protecting. Now, these Hilichurls were huddled in a corner awaiting their last moments, unfortunately. More knights begin to appear, but before attacking us, the suspicious knight from before calls them off to retreat. Dainsleif then informs us that he believes the knight is named Halfdan. Halfdan is a friend of his from Conria that was last ordered to protect the people at all costs. Dainsleif believes that there is still some memory from before residing in them, and that is why they are continuing to follow orders from the war. It's a really unfortunate reality that we come to, which is that the people of Conria don't really have a perception of what's happened or time. We continue to climb the summit, coming upon a structure of water that seems to be the source of the weakening of the curse. Halfdan then appears and tells us to follow him, and as we do, we come across a settlement of Hilichurls. As we investigate further, we come across a flower known as the Intivat. Dane gives us some interesting information, which is that the Intivat wilts within 2 weeks of blooming, but hardens if it's taken out of Conria, interestingly enough. The traveler then has a flashback where they witness their sibling talking to an Abyss Herald about how they plan to remove the Abyssal Curse and rebuild Conria. This was the reveal of the century because truly it kind of gives us an idea as to what the Abyss is currently trying to do. We finally have an Abyss motive after all this time. Dane thinks this is an impossible task, and the others need to accept the reality, which is that the curse is permanent, and that they should stop the Abyss Order as their motives tarnish the people of Conria and their legacy, including Halfdan's. Now, on the way out, an Abyss Herald warps in, trying to reason with the Dane and explain their perspective. Dane dismisses this as folly, and we help him slay the Herald before making our way back to the original device. As we walk back into the chamber, we spot an Abyss Lecter starting a ritual that brings pain to Dainsleif, Halfdan, and the nearby Hilichurls. Halfdan ends up having to sacrifice his body upon the machine, placing it over the device to stop some of the ritual process. Dainsleif is surprised by this, expecting Halfdan to turn to ash upon contact. We suggest taking Halfdan's place, but Dane informs us that there are 4 other devices we can get rid of to stop the ritual. After successfully destroying the 4 devices, we return to the center chamber to find Halfdan indeed dead. Halfdan's soul appears in front of Dane with a salute, and Dane lets Halfdan know that Conria still stands and thanks him for his service. Oh my god, this quest line is still so sad now that I'm going back to it. Dane then goes on to explain to us we must soon pick a side as the Abyss continues to progress its plans. And that is a cliffhanger that we are left on with the Dane quest line for Inazuma. I swear, man, every time this guy comes, it's a ton of lore, but it's also just so much more confusing. Like, there's so many things that come out of it that just make more questions. Now, don't get me wrong, Dane is always a lore drop, but also when Dane shows up, somehow it feels like we have more questions after than actual answers lately. This brings us to patch 2.7, which is actually the Chasm Part 2 questline that involves Yelan. If you explore through patch 2.6, you actually got a cutscene at the very end with Yelan shooting down a celestial nail. We do come to find one in the middle of the chasm somehow. We don't get a whole lot of information on the nail of the chasm, unfortunately, until much later, so we'll have to cover that then. But I just wanted to give you guys our first look at Yelan, aka our Black Widow of the story, because she honestly totally gives that vibe. Like, I feel like she would do that Black Widow pose where she goes down on the ground. Like, that is a Yelan core moment. It hasn't happened though, but I think it should. 2.7's questline has the Traveler and Paimon return to the chasm to investigate the mysteries of that celestial nail. Now, upon arrival, we actually get to see Yanfei, our law girlie, looking towards it. She's surprised to see us and lets us know she's on an important business, but then also tells us to pretend that we never saw her, which, like, girl, I get, but like, what are you doing? Like, I want to know. As soon as she leaves though, out of absolutely nowhere, like, we are in Liyue, we find Kuki Shinobu and our lovely Ito, the island motherfucking himbo from Inazuma. Kuki's unfortunately the babysitter in this scenario. Kuki Shinobu lets us know that she's back in Liyue to pick up her graduate certificate from the nearby academy, as she's been unable to get it due to the previous Vision Hunt decree. Raiden, do you see any problems you're causing everybody? Ito decided to join due to her safety, only to cause a brawl earlier with the Millilith, so that's basically null and void. We end up sending off Ito and head to the ground below underneath the nail to find Yanfei. And as we approach, a mysterious woman who has come to be known as Yelan approaches. Ito and Shinobu quickly join the group, with Ito being very upset as we led him away from the group on purpose because we're trying to get rid of him. Yelan then tells the two people from Inazuma to leave as it's too dangerous. But this ends up angering our little island himbo Ito, which escalates the situation further. And Yelan is having none of it. Like, Yelan is like, I will put an arrow right through your six-pack. And just as they're about to fight, the ground beneath us begins to crack, sending us down lower into the chasm. We didn't even know there was a lower level. This was a surprise to all of us. This was inaccessible in the past patch. The group then tries to gather their surroundings while Yelan heads off to figure out where they are. Backstory in Yelan, she isn't part of the Chiseng in Liyue, but she has a ton of connections with Ningguang. Basically knows everything and everybody. She's more of, I would say, like a behind the scenes kind of girly. Now they come across a strange portal, and Yanfei recognizes the surrounding rocks as extremely old Liyuean mountain rock. Yelan then notices something behind them, only to discover Zhao. Yep, the emo boy is here. We then question Zhao, who tells us that he's looking for someone and that we should leave, before he literally just teleports away. I don't know if Zhao realized that we don't have a way out, but thanks. So with no other option, the group ends up entering the portal and the domain. After clearing this domain, the group finds themselves back in the original place they started. So they literally went through a door, and went through another door, only to end up where they were. Some theories are an evil yokai could possibly be behind this, and Ito summons Ushi to dispel it. And Ushi looks around, is unable to find anything or an exit. I mean, I didn't expect much from the cow, but I was still very disappointed. So the group spreads out at this point to look for other exits. And Yanfei actually discovers that the ceiling above them where they fell has been sealed off completely somehow. Yelan then informs the group to mentally prepare themselves, as they might be trapped down there for a while. At this point, Paimon's like freaking out. She's like losing her mind. Like, this girlie is the worst person taking the apocalypse, which is hilarious because I'm pretty sure that's what we're preparing for throughout this entire story. So that's great. Like, she's hyperventilating, she's hungry, she's thirsty, all of a sudden she needs everything and anything. Now the traveler at this point attempts to call upon Zhao, but fails to do so. And a day later, Paimon begins to complain that it's felt like 20 days to her. Personally, I think she's just being overdramatic, and if it was me, I wouldn't care, but the group is a bit concerned. The rest of the group, though, realizes, though, that none of them have felt tired, hungry, or thirsty. It's gotten a bit weird in here. Like, what's going on? Because I know me, and 4 hours in, I'm already like, okay, I need McDicks or something. Like, I am getting hangry. Yolanda ends up finding another path concealed by illusionary magic, which leads them into another domain. They enter it only to end up hearing Zhao talking to someone as he appears to be struggling with something. The group comes together to solve a puzzle, causing a mysterious door to appear. Zhao then interrupts them out of nowhere, warning them to get out of here due to the domain being dangerous and to leave urgently before he is completely cut off. Again, I'm not sure where Zhao thinks we can go. Like, we're just gonna end up in the same room with, like, nothing to do. Ito, our resident idiot, leaps into the hole, hurting himself while the others follow. And down below, the group encounters another door that, when opened, reveals the fear of the person that opens it. It's getting, like, very Harry Potter, like, or whatever, you know, when they, like, open that thing, like, the Dementor comes out. It's giving that. When Ito opens the door, he finds Inazuma and people inside who are disappointed in him for being a bad influence, as well as a bowl of beans. Afraid of beans, y'all. He's afraid of beans. I swear to God, like, is that a metaphor for his brain? Like, is he afraid of his own brain? Kuki Shinobu, when opening the door, is greeted by her mother, who lectures her on her choices to become a shrine maiden. Damn, if that's not the realest thing that has happened in this game, like, you open the door and the fear is disappointing your family. Girl, I'm a YouTuber and a Twitch streamer. I know all about it. Yolanda declines to open the door, stating she would need to kill everyone in the room currently due to her working with Ningguang and knowing too many of Liyue's secrets. I was so mad when this happened. I was actually furious. I was like, open the door, Yolanda. I want to know what the fuck is going on. I want to know what you know. I was so angry. Like, what could she be possibly afraid of? She's like such a baddie. When Yanfei opens the door, she witnesses a civil dispute. This girlie is like, oh my God, the paperwork would be awful. Please close the door. The traveler steps in only to find themselves in the darkness of the abyss. Paimon is becoming more tired and hungry at this point, and the group retreat to camp, assuming the domain is targeting their weaknesses to some degree. Yanfei actually ends up pulling the traveler aside, wanting to save Zhao. She lets us know that Zhao is probably in a chaotic space that doesn't follow the same laws of this world. Interesting. I actually don't think that we ever figured out what that meant or like where that was. Yanfei ends up actually dispelling another illusion where Zhao is speaking through, and they're able to drag him out of it just in time. After some much needed rest, Zhao explains he's looking for his missing brother in arms, Bosacius, and he believes he is within the chasm. Quick little recap, but Bosacius is actually a Yaksha, just like Zhao, who went missing after the Conrian War. He thought this man was dead. Zhao suggests he uses up all his power to get the group up to the surface while he is left behind, and the group protests this idea. Ito, actually hearing this, punches a wall, opening a path to avoid the unneeded sacrifice, expending most of his energy due to this. He's dumb, but at least he has biceps. We'll give him that. This new path leads to another domain where they find a large version of the Fantastic's compass in the distance. Through manipulating this compass, they're able to eventually find themselves up against the remnants of Bosacious' memory. Zhao purges this memory, and after a brief fight and on the final turn of the compass needed, the group head into the manifestation of the abyss. We then spot an illusion of our sibling, which then leads us to an actual physical, smaller version of the Fantastic Compass lying on the ground. Yolanda then activates it and quickly discovers that someone else had previously used it. The group leaves the area, and Yolanda tries to figure out how to unlock it, but then lets us know that the only thing hidden within the compass was Boyang's fate, and the group now believes that they are stuck for good within the chaotic space. This causes Paimon to absolutely lose her shit. Like, she's freaking out. She knocks the compass to the ground, and as Yolanda and Zhao go to pick it up, it begins to react to their energy. Yanfei then quickly realizes this compass is an exorcism catalyst made to repel demons using the art of both humans and adepti magic combined. So in theory, this compass can bring the group to the surface, but since the compass is an illusion, it can't be brought outside of the space with them. I don't know, it's really complicated. They really didn't want us to have this compass. They like found a way. way. They're like, you can use it now, but this thing will be OP later, so we're leaving it down here. The group activates the compass, unleashing a floating platform that begins to climb up to the surface. As they climb, malevolent forces try to intervene, keeping the group within the space. Zhao's energy at this point starts to give in, and he uses his last bit of himself left to hurl the group to the surface, doing exactly what we said he shouldn't have done. As the platform shatters, Zhao begins to fall, but right as he disappears into the darkness, a yellow energy appears from the surface to rescue him. I just want to say this, and I want to talk about it. Zhao really did seem at peace at this moment and accepting of death. It really did feel like Zhao felt like his sacrifice would have been worth it at the end, and he could finally like lay his head to rest after all these years of misery. I will say it was a very hard in between of like maybe it should have happened or maybe it shouldn't, but all in all, he did end up not dying. We are revealed at this point that earlier Zhao told Zhongli of his intentions, and the Geo Archon was aware of this trip and saves him in the moment. So thank you, Zhongli. Though on my board, Zhao is the name wannabe corpse looking ass should have died in 2.7 because I agree. I think he should have died. I feel like it would have been like a good moment. Now we spend a moment in the end with Zhao where he reflects on his past and seems to be starting to come to terms with his found family's fate. The Traveler and Zhao agree that those who died defending Liyue are heroes of history. And I really do believe this was a difficult thing for Zhao to come to terms with over the years. The Yakshas in the very end really did end up becoming vicious creatures that succumb to their fate, and it must have been terribly hard for Zhao to see his own found family turn against each other and rip each other apart. And that brings us to the final patch, patch 2.8, which takes place in the Golden Apple Archipelago that we revisit from 1.6. Strap in because this is a lot, and honestly it delves into a lot of the characters' backstories and interesting moments with them. I know a lot of people ended up missing this, so this is definitely something to listen to because you really don't get this information from anywhere else. In patch 2.8, we meet up with the lovely Fischl, who is named, what did she say? Because honestly, anytime Fischl's on the screen, you have no idea what the hell's going on. Fischl lets Catherine know that they were looking for us, and Mona ends up joining in on the conversation. We then decide to head to the tavern, only to meet up with Venti, Kazuha, and Jinyan. Jinyan is named Avril Lavigne, for all the Canadian girlies out there. Now listen, Kazuha is getting absolutely shit-faced. I guess all the anime boys have their own like vices. And we decide that Fischl, Mona, Jinyan, and Kazuha will all join us on this summer trip to the Golden Apple Archipelago. We then take one of Alice's insane mommy contraptions that bring us to the islands. And although much of it reminds us of our past visit, it also seems oddly different. Now, Kazuha decides to survey the area while Fischl and Mona beef it out. Throughout this entire questline, they're kind of at each other's throats, which is hilarious if you watch the diss track video. We do find a strange contraption on one of these islands, and the machine seems to have traces of hydro around it with footsteps surrounding it. And this lets us know we aren't the first people here. We then come to find out that the Fatui are also here, and the reasoning is still unknown as to what their goals are and what they're even doing. When returning back to the group on the original island, we decide to contact Venti. This is done using a device he handed to us before we left. We ask Venti about the strange ongoings on the islands and the Fatui, and he seems, as usual, unbothered. Archon literally like get kicked again. Like he's so not helpful ever. Like why do we even rely on him? The next day though, we are greeted by a squirrel and a boat, and the boat is named Mitoboru. Probably butchering that name, but we're gonna go with that. The group then actually talks about how odd the experience is that they're having throughout the day and overnight and hearing odd noises, visions, and they all agree that something's going on. So Mona decides to try a divination, but it doesn't even work. The group then end up kind of getting on a topic about dreams and realities and trying to determine the difference between the two. Before they even really get anywhere with the conversation, they are interrupted by a sudden storm. In the distance, there is almost like a flickering of an unknown island. It's as if reality is almost flickering before their eyes. Kazuha and the group at this point are very interested and set out towards one of the islands, only to arrive on a smaller island nearby. And this island strangely holds a planter of a bonsai that Kazuha recognizes. When Kazuha goes to interact with the planter, the group is brought into another realm. This domain that we actually enter into is focused on Kazuha's previous life and upbringing. It dives into the Caldera clan and how Kazuha came to be the person he is today. Towards the end of the domain, you come to learn about Kazuha's struggle with upholding the clan, and that its eventual downfall was his family falling apart around him. Kazuha then goes to talk about his life alone, as well as the moments before his friend faced off with the Raiden Shogun. We also end up coming to see how Kazuha ends up with Beto, leaving behind his life previous to wander alone. Kazuha does explain to us though that he is happy where he is in his life currently and looks back to see how far he's come. He leaves the traveler with a remark of never dwelling on the past. After getting outside of Kazuha's domain, Mona is still unable to perform divinations. So the next day the group come together and travel to another island, and after interacting with instruments go into Jinyan's domain. Now Jinyan explores her passions for music and what it means to her personally. She explores her upbringing and her struggles she had pursuing music, especially when it came to her family and their perceptions of it. A lot of the story ends up dealing with the doubts about her passion and being misunderstood by her parents. It seemed like many people were also pressuring her to bring her passion into something more traditional. Jinyan at one point then comes face to face with a child that misunderstands her and is unsure of why she is the way she is, both in personality but also physically. This, interestingly enough, turns into a conversation about Jinyan's hair and what is acceptable in society and what isn't. You could really see Jinyan seems to be uncomfortable fighting for the ability to wear her hair the way she wants to, and this definitely seems to be nudging in the direction of the topic of POC and hair and how it can be seen in negative ways when worn naturally for no reason at all. I'm going to be really honest though, it isn't super explored in depth when it comes to that concept. It's just kind of like there. And if you didn't know about that idea previously, I don't know if you would have grasped it from just watching this. In the end, Jinyan reflects on music and how it is intertwined with her life in so many different ways in a positive light. Coming out of the domain, Mona later on tries to scry once again to see what the Fatui are up to, but is unable to do so. She senses something large is physicalizing soon, but is unsure what it is. The next day, they head out to another island and Fischl is unable to be found. Everyone is seeking out an entrance into the next domain, and Mona suspects Fischl has gone on her own to do the same. They come to find a book upon the beach written by Fischl herself, and upon touching it are sent into Fischl's domain. This place being a fantasy world she constantly references throughout the game in Genshin Impact. After going through many puzzles within Fischl's domain, you come in contact with another book which takes you into Fischl's childhood room. You come to learn that Fischl struggled with her identity and sense of self at home, feeling misunderstood by her own parents. Honestly, I'm sure a lot of people who play Genshin Impact could definitely relate to the story in some interesting ways. The group leaves the domain temporarily, forcing them to find another book on the island before continuing the story. When they do re-enter the domain, the story goes on to explore Fischl's character and how it compares to her real self. We dive into the idea of Fischl using her character as almost something like a mask, shielding her inner self from the world around her. In the end though, we come to meet Fischl's alter ego, the side of herself she presents to the outer world. Fischl has to face this side of herself in a side that she believes is almost better than her in a way. She has to overcome this idea that she isn't good enough and doesn't require a character to be confident and to love herself. Fischl in the end does defeat her alter ego through coming to terms with this realization. Now, after getting out of Fischl's domain, we try to contact Venti again, only for a conversation to be cut out short by a mysterious voice. This voice insisting the group presses on to find out the answers themselves about the mysteries of the island. Okay. Weird. The next day, the adventuring group sets out to another mirage with Mona knowing that this one definitely will be hers. After finding a strange pool of water on the island, the group dives in, being transported into Mona's domain. Upon arriving in the domain, they come across a room filled with stars, and Mona is relieved that her dream realm wasn't a room in which her old hag of a master was lecturing her in. I can't wait till I get to do a Hex and Circle wall, like that is going to be the peak of my career. Now, after exploring the domain further, the group comes across a floating star which travels back to the main room that the group entered in. It ends up falling into a pool of water, and as the group follows it, they are transported once again further into this dream world. Mona goes on to explain that she believes astrology is a powerful tool that can help explain the world's inner workings. And she opens up about the struggles of learning divination and the immense amount of pressure it brought to her life. People came to her demanding answers, and Mona at the time had to present a bleak future to some people who demanded the knowledge. Mona then dealt with a ton of resentment from those who did not like the future that she foretold. She even faced moments of ridicule and loneliness in her life from people who pushed her away that weren't ready to face these truths. She does go on to reassure us that these problems were more of an issue for her when she first stepped into astrology, and she now finds herself in a more mature space where she doesn't let random opinions phase her. Really need to take a page out of Mona's book when it comes to looking in the comments section sometimes. The group exit out of a door, coming back to the island they once were before entering Mona's domain, and the island now looks closer to Mondstadt and its geology. Eventually, the group does re-enter the dream domain and take a different direction this time. They discover another floating star that eventually leads them back to the pool of water within the first room, similarly to the last time. Mona continues to pursue the star as she recalls a story where she met an adventurer and performed a divination for him. In this divination, she saw a terrible fate and advised him to give up on adventuring or else he would meet the fate within the next 2 years. The adventurer believed Mona but decided to push forward regardless. And at this point, Mona finds another doorway which brings the group back to the island. Jinyan ends up asking Mona about the current adventurer's state, and she lets us know that the story happened about 3 years ago, meaning that the adventurer was surely dead by now. Mona then interestingly explains to us that the astrologers are there to verify and witness the truths of this world. I have to hear that one little slogan one more time. Like, what does that mean? Like, even Albedo says it, and he's literally sus. The group at this point really seemed to be in these dream realms and domains, less for the truth though, and more for the fun that it's providing them as a team. We once again return to Mona's dream domain, opening a new hallway and retrieving a new star, eventually finding its way to the pool of water. This star hovers briefly over the water though, and the group realizes that they need another one this time in order to proceed. Down another hallway and through another puzzle, another star is found and brought back to the room. Strangely though, as the 2 stars enter the water this time, the water dissipates, revealing a secret hidden room underneath. Now through this hidden room, we enter into a doorway which transports us into Mona's home. And we come to learn that the Mona we once thought was broke actually lives in luxury. Like, girlie is literally stealing cold cut handouts from Fischl. Now, apparently the main reason why Mona has no Mora is because the books she buys can cost upwards of $1 million. In Mona's room, though, a strange ornamental globe emanates light, and upon touching it, the group is brought back into Mona's dream domain. Now, as we explore this new section of Mona's domain, she tells us that astrology must not be combined with arrogance. Apparently, those who seek unlimited power through astrology are banished by the stars themselves. Interesting when you know a lot about stars and what they could be. Lastly, Mona remarks that fate cannot be altered or reversed, and although she has glimpsed at the secrets between both the heaven and the earth, nothing drives her to try and change the fates of this world. Oh, Mona, do I have information for you in patch 4.2? We come to observe the sky with Mona as she explains to us that the stars within it represent all of us. As the stars move through the sky, they record the events of your life. Many of these stars deviate from their paths, representing the worsening of one's life if they do not seize their own fates. Mona then seizes her own destiny through grabbing on to a nearby shooting star, taking them outside of the mirage once and for all. Mona realizes then that the Fatui are not directly involved with these mirages appearing, and it must be something else. Kazuha then remarks that we should return to the machine as he believes that there may be a connection between madness and dreams. Going on to say that a hallucination is not more different from a dream, and the reason why we didn't experience madness was due to the fact that the group had strong willpower. So the group returns to the machine only to find a drunken Fatui researcher nearby. And it's not Shu, but everyone thought it was when I said that. The group try to communicate with him, but he has just completely descended into madness. They do end up retrieving the machine's manuscript and come to realize it has the ability to alter one's brain. Now, the Fatui didn't actually agree with this machine, so the researchers decided to take off on their own and test it anyways. And the machine's ability to connect with one's mind is top secret, but they do find out that the machine was modeled after a godly being of power. And the machine's ability to connect with one's mind is top secret, but they do find out that the machine was modeled after a godly being's power. We decide to repair the device for now through collecting crystalline cores which were previously ejected from the machine. Once collected and inserted into the machine, it lights up blue from its previous red. We then return to our base camp on the island where the group reminisces on the adventures that they just had together. And Mona actually lets us know that her divination abilities are finally working again, but she senses a force of someone watching them. Like, girl, what? Is this like about to turn into Horror Island? Like, we just got to the end of the movie. At this point, though, the Traveler and Paimon do step away and decide that they're going to try and contact Venti again, which they end up finally successfully being able to. They explain to Venti everything that happened on the island, and Venti doesn't really seem to have any answers for us as to why this all happened. Oh my god, just name him Useless Bard, Drunken Bard, any name in the book but the Brain Bard. Brain Bard is not Venti, zero brain. He does reassure us about the voice we heard earlier, letting us know that if someone who was able to contact us like that wanted to hurt us, they probably would have by now. And since they haven't, they're likely not a threat. The voice then quickly interrupts us, asking if we're happy with all the mysteries we solved. They then go on to explain that they're just a bird that flies by these islands from time to time. And it seems that although they are talking to us directly, that they're far away from us physically. Like they're almost talking to us in our brain, similarly to the machine that we found on these islands. The voice then admits to us that the powers on the island were based on their abilities as a god, confirming to us that we are indeed talking to a god of some sort, one with the power of dreams. This voice lets us know that they're unable to travel currently, but did design the mirage of dreams for us to experience. They part ways, but not before letting us know that we will meet them soon enough and should recognize them when we do. And there is a moment of thought before the symbol of Dendro flashes before our eyes. And that is the end of the Inazuma patch series and this lore video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Oh my god, we covered so many things in this one video. I'm going to make this the quickest wrap up ever. Please, 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 it would mean a ton to me to go down below and hit the subscribe button, comment, like, do all those YouTube things because these take so much work. I literally bought new equipment for this. You can only see this side of the room. But thank you guys so much for supporting this series. I would have never hit 20k without doing this series, and who knows where we're going to go from here. I'm very excited to see how the lore ball evolves into Sumeru. Please give me your ideas down below. And as always, I cannot wait to see you in the next one.